Against the Gym Players, Pork Barbecue, Gym against Roxy, weaker on the special side of the Pork Barbecue. Now, so I hit it with a tackle, which actually gets effective against a row with even with that. And it's super effective, and this thing goes down way more easily than just what goes. Hey, darling, what are we going to watch today? Hold on a minute. The Anthony Skelly City. Here we can go to the park and have a 5% chance to find ourselves an EV. Name it salsa and a leftovers item in the sewers. We're actually allowed to go to Route 4 before we take on the gym, which means we can run into our next encounter of Darumata. Neutral picture, and I of course name it Large Fry. And since we've actually seen our Pokemon at this point, we can get the Eviolite item from this scientist. This means that it's finally time to take on our next 2-liter Berg and his bug types. Now, naturally, we have a really good type matchup against Berg, and I decided to lead off the Pop Dog for Intimidate, but also since we can steal this level of Citrus Berry. I then hit it with an Embers and misses a Rock Blast, but the next Rock Blast hits us with 4 hits and almost takes us out. However, because of Citrus Berry, we could have lived with 5th hit, and we take it out with the next Ember. Berg's next Pokemon is a Aeroblast, so I decided to swap out into Pork Barbecue and take it out with a single Flame Charge. This also means that we get our speed boosted, which in turn means we're going to outspeed this Leafani and take it out with a single quad effective Flame Charge. I even end up getting a crit, which obviously doesn't matter at all, and Berg's final Pokemon HP, the Berg's going to go for a Hyper Potion, so we're going to have to go for a couple more to take it out. Overall, though, a Bug Gym against our Fire types, yeah, he had no shot. This means that we claim our 3rd Gym Badge and move on to Route 4 again where we need Colress. Apart from this guy's Life Sword being a device that scares away Hermit Crabs, he also doubles as a Pokemon trainer that uses Steel types, and Steel types are weak to Fire types, so you can kind of guess how this one went. Yeah, it was a clean sweep. Better luck next time, Colas. I then go ahead and pick up some useful items like the Bright Powder and Slipper King, which is going to be helpful for the next gym, and of course the Soft Jam. There also happens to be a spot where you can find a hidden Firestone in the Desert Resort, which means we can evolve Eevee into Flareon. Flareon's actually going to be amazing since it has a really high attack stat and can learn Dig. And on my way to Nimbasa City, I meet some subscribers and join Avenue, and they got the right idea. You should probably press that button as well. I can then make my way to Lost Lorn Forest, where we can find our next encounter, which is super annoying, since we have to look for the shaking grass, and all we get is a Pansear. I mean, at least it has the best possible candid nature, and I name it Fury, but next we have to meet up with Bianca. Here it is, there's a gap, and it looks like, whoa, now, don't want to be your gap, Bianca. That's a neck of the woods that I am not comfortable exploring. But speaking of places I am comfortable exploring, I go to the Relic Castle just to find the TM for Rock 2. And with that, it's come the time once again to take on my arch nemesis, Elisa. I go ahead and start out with Pork Barbecue, and she sends in her Revolta. I expect her to go for Volt Switch, but she actually goes for a not very effective Pursuit as I hit her with a Rock Hit to lower her speed, which triggers Citrus Berry. Because of that speed drop, we're now actually faster, so I can outspeed and go for a Heat Crash and take out the Omega. That's one nuisance out of the way. The following Pokemon are Flappy and Chilchik, which both just get one-shot by a Heat Crash and a Flame Charge respectively. This means that Elisa only has a Striker left, and we're not going to have to worry about any Volt Switch shenanigans. And even though I have +1 speed off what's gotta be the fastest Hunter beat alive, I still don't outspeed, and Heat Crash barely does any damage. However, since I know I can survive a crit Volt Switch, I decide to stay in and risk missing a Rock to both actually hit them lower the speed. But now that we actually would go down to a crit, I decide to swap out into Flareon, and even though we have the minus speed on this Striker, it's still outspeed and stops, but luckily I don't get flinched, and I can dig, which means that we seal the victory. And I mean, I was never too worried about this gym, but the Striker can be pretty annoying, and you know what, at the end of the day, I'm always going to be new to this top model. Elisa's never stood a chance. Now that we've beaten the 4th gym, the level cap in challenge mode is actually 36, which means we can level up Pork Barbecue until it evolves. And honestly, I've never been that big of a fan of Emboar. Let me know what you guys think. Who's your favorite 5th gen starter? And since the level cap is at 36, we can get Large Price to 35, so it evolves into a full menu, where we can go after just the domain at 10. We really are just hungry. And these evolutions really make a difference in this stage of the game. See, normally, Clay and his ground types would be very threatening to our team, and the level capping at 33 makes so we can't evolve either during markup or midnight before the fight. But since the challenge mode cap is 36, we actually have a much more powerful team to work with. And tell me about the decision to use that. We want to offer, first off, something that is delicious. We want people to indulge and have a great time here, but we also want it to be that smart for them too. So it's time to take on the big bad oil tycoon himself, Clay, and his ground ties. He leads up to Croc Rock, and I start with an order of large fries, after which I get intimidated promptly. However, one hammer is enough to do the job, and he sends in his Onyx, so I swap that into hot dog. Now, the thing about this Onyx is that it actually has explosions, so that intimidates him. And I retaliate with a flamethrower that does about half, after which I pin it out into pork barbecue. The neutral one slide didn't really do any damage at all, but I'm hearing an explosion, which actually comes the next turn, and I ended up pretty low, considering the Onyx is a -1, and you know how good pork is. The next Pokemon to come out is actually Sand Slash, and I managed to outspeed this thing and go for a crash, which takes it down super low as he bulldozers and lowers my speed. The next turn, I know Flame's going to go for a Hyper Potion, so I decided to go for a Flame Charge just to get my speed back so I can outspeed and hit the next turn with a V-Crash to take out the Sand Slash. Now here's the thing, since I got back to neutral speed because of that Flame Charge, I actually got enough EVs against those Purloins so that I always outspeed this Excadrill, and well, I just take it out with a super effective V-Crash. That battle ended up being pretty calculated, and Clay can be one of the hardest gym leaders in all of Pokemon. However, one fight that was just as easy as last time was beating Chorus in the World Tournament, which I actually decided to play a few more times, just to collect some battle points. And this means that I actually have to humiliate Elisa in another fight, and you know me, I'm always up to do that. But here's the thing, with those battle points, we can actually exchange 3 of them to get a Firestone, which means we're going to have an easy way to evolve both Fury and Hot Dog. So I decided to evolve Fury right away, but with Growlithe, I'm looking to get crunched before I evolve into Arcanine, since that thing really doesn't get anything whatsoever. Oh, and yay, Blue Monkey! I then hit Drew Chargestone and get to the Skolden City, where I received a Master Ball from Professor Juniper, which is going to be super helpful since we can now access the Blue Links through the Relic Passage. And in Pokemon Black and White 2, that means that we get to catch ourselves a Volcarona, and I'm not taking any chances here. I just threw the Master Ball right away. And I gotta tell you, Volcarona is an absolute monster. I managed to get a speed boost in nature, which is even better. I name it Habanero and move on to the Celestial Tower, where I can pick up the TM for Rotos and encounter my next encounter with sadly not shiny this time though. And to top that off, it even has a brave nature, which is like the worst thing you could possibly have. I named my Lilith Ghost Pepper for pretty obvious reasons, and the next interesting thing that happened is that it evolved into a Lantern. And this means it's finally time to take on the 6th gym versus Skylander Flying type. She leads up with Swoobat, and I decide to oddly enough lead up with Emboar, even though it's a fighting type, just because I have the Thunder Punch. And even though it outspeeds and hits us with an attack, the power of Barbecue is stronger than Glove, so we take it out with a single Thunder Punch. Next up is Swan, and since I'm at full health, I decide to risk an attack, and I go for Feather Dance, which halves my attack, but since I'm quad effective with Thunder Punch, it does the job anyway. Then we get Scintilla to deal with, and I know this thing wants to go for Hypnosis, so I decide to stay in just so I can get a safe switch in without getting put to sleep. So I decide to go into Salsa, and gets hit by a Psychic on the switch, but takes it fairly well, and can then just take up the Scintilla with 2 fights. This means the final Pokemon we're going to have to face is Starry, and since I'm at about half health, I decided to just swap out Flareon here. But on the switch, Starry actually goes for Agility, so I get the chance to go for Yawn the next turn, but not when we're getting hit by a crit Aerial Ace, which does way over half. After getting off the Yawn, I switch into Large Fry, who also gets crit by Aerial Ace. What's going on? After that, I go for a Fire Punch, taking it down to Sturdy and activating its Citrus Berry, and the next turn it wakes up and goes for an Aerial Ace, which luckily doesn't get a crit, and I can take it out with another Fire Punch. I'm certainly very glad we did lose Large Fries there, as it's a very important part of our Neo composition. I mean, team composition. What are we talking about? Anyway, next up, we're taking the plane to Lentimus Town, where we can actually find our next encounter of the run. And this means that we can finally get access to my boy Numo, which I capture and name Hot Pocket. And it actually has the ability Simple, which is such a great ability since it doubles any stat changes to the Pokemon, which is going to come in handy. It also defaults into camera up as soon as we level it up, which is awesome. And while we're here in Lentimus Town, we might as well pick up the TM for Shadow Ball and the Dusk Stone inside the scary house. And with the Dusk Stone in hand, you know it, we can evolve Ghost Pepper into a Chandelure, but it just doesn't feel the same when it's not shiny, you know what I mean? Anyway, after a close call and a minute mirror match, we end up making it out, but just barely, and I decided to evolve Hot Dog into an Arcanine at this point since we finally got the move for Crunch. I mean, who doesn't love Arcanine? So I think if you don't love Arcanine in the comments, then what's wrong with you? Okay, that's Lisa, let's have a Pokemon battle. That's a fantastic idea. Okay, first of all, friend, English speakers pronounce it idea and not ID. That's a different thing. And secondly, it's not even a fantastic idea at that. But okay. Anyway, after this unpleasant goes for attack and then a taunt, I just take it out with a single Thunder Punch. And then Pixie's being cheeky and sends out his Water type Samurott, but since I actually have the choice card item, I can just slap him with a Thunder Punch and take him out in one hit. I'm not exactly sure how you slap someone with a punch, but I'm not going to redo that game. Since I locked into Thunder Punch with my choice card that I got from the World Tournament, I decided to swap into Hot hot dog, we can take care of this suicide easily. Also, don't take Pike's back. It's not very speaking. I can buy Pokemon sold here because somewhere somebody is making them. Thank you for saying I'll never get the Pokemon somewhere. You're welcome, but how do you live in the Pokemon world and not know about Silco? What the fuck? Anyway, on my way to Pollution City, we run into this guy who has a 999 win streak, and we just smoke him. Way to pick your opponents, guy with steel pipes. What's that? Oh, it's a, oh my goodness, oh, it's a giant, what is that thing? Hey, get on the fire before it weighs eggs. Now listen, so far, we've had a pretty good time with this run. Now, Jack, so far, it's looking pretty good. It's time to face the 7th gym against Kraken and his Dragon types. First turn, I turn with Dragon as it faces a Rock Slide. I then go in and swap out of the Wood Club and take the neutral Rock Slide once again very well. The next turn, I decide to go for a Burst Break each yesterday and actually just clean knocks out the Dragon. After that, Kraken's next Pokemon is Flygon, so I think he's going to go for Earth Power and swap out into Ghost Pepper to dodge Pure Power with the Air Roll. This means that the Flygon has to go for Crunch, which does hit super effectively, and I actually hit the Flame Body as I hit it with the Shadow Ball. Now, I know he's going to Hyper Potion here, but I also know I can't take him out in one hit, and he can take me out in one hit after that. So I decided to swap out into Fury Fury, go for a powerful Fire Blast with about half, but then unfortunately has to go down to an Earth Power. You'll be dearly missed, Goop Monkey. And the next turn here, I make a little bit of a mistake. So I go into Hot Talk to get me intimidated, but Earth Power, of course, is a special move, and I don't take this Flygon out with a Flamethrower. I barely survive on 21 HP. Flygon going down to burn. That was brutal. Anyway, next is Altaria, so I decided to switch Hot Dog out, but he's not doing too hot, and go to Habanero, who can tank these special hits really well and burn the target. The Altaria then goes for Cotton Guard, which boosts his defense a lot, but I'm going to get on the special side anyway with my Silver Winds, which I managed to take it out with after just 2 hits and some burn. I took a little risk, but I end up missing, and he goes for a Dragon Tail here, so I think I'm out for the count, but I end up surviving on 4 HP, getting the bird with Flame Body. What is going on? Then I get dragged out into Fortress Barbecue from the Dragon Tail, and I can go for a Quick Break as he Dragon Dances, which is kind of scary, but since he's burned, I'm not too worried about it. And the other fact is that he only has moves that can't really hurt me, like Shadow Claw. This means I can just take out the Haxorus with yet another Brick Break and reclaim our victory, but at a cost. Unfortunately, we lost Fury, but now that we won, we have to take on Team Flatland. How the Raiders look at me here? They just picked types that weren't good against, so we pretty much just destroyed his entire team. Should have picked water types. Hold on a second, let me just take this call. Holy beautiful Saxon, and City, Swedish Winters, come early. Now, Sven, don't get idiot. The evil police pirates just attacked with your ice cannon from a flying ship. Okay, look, I know that this, I'm the idiot, but what you're saying sounds so stupid. What the fuck? Anyway, we proceed to our 8th gym, which is actually a water type gym, which you might think would give you a lot of trouble, even through the gym trainers, but I somehow managed to take care of them easy peasy. That means that it's finally time for us to take on the last gym leader, Marlin, and his water types. And I decided to lead off the battle with a Thunder Punch, thinking with KO, but Wayward actually survives and sets up a rain dance the first turn. Next up, I'm fairly confident that Marlon's going to go for a Hyper Potion, so I decided to go for a workup just to boost my attack a little bit so that my next Thunder Punch actually gets a KO. This means we're at full health and we got the first obstacle out of the way, but he did set up the rain, which is very scary. Now, my plan for Scarecrow was to relearn Arm Thrust, but see the damage we're doing? There's no way I'm going to out. Okay, I just got 5 hits. That's actually incredible. After that, we have to face off against Mantine or Mantine, or, I mean, I've always said Mantine is supposed to be Mantine. Well, we get confused and we hurt ourselves in confusion, and the rain stops, so I decided to swap out into Hot Dog. This, of course, means that Hot Dog is going to feel the wrath of this Mantine's skull, but it doesn't quite do enough, and we can finish this thing off with a quad-effective Thunder Bang. This means that Marlin's only remaining Pokemon is a Jellicent, but since I'm unsure I can take it out in one hit, we call it the Salsa, and what I did here was more of a sacrificial play than anything else. out, because Salsa does have fight, and I knew it wasn't going to be able to pick it out, and I knew we were going to get one shot by a stall. I'm really sorry to have to see it go, Salsa, but Intimidate is just an invaluable resource, and I think we're really going to need it later on in the run. But this means that Johnson is in the ring for one punch can take it out, and we're done with the gym badges. But being done with the gym challenge means that we of course have to take on the Frozen Space Pirates. And Sven still swears that the Space Pirates aren't real, they can't hurt me, but that doesn't mean that I can't hurt them. And that's exactly what I did. Sven actually has some pretty fast Pokemon, so with the wrong side he can be quite tricky, but with Frozen Pirates, But when it comes to Team Plasma, the difficult fights are really early started, and now he has to face off against Colress, who's a lot more difficult in this fight than he did before. I start off the battle by bringing it down to his sturdy with a fire punch, and paralyzed me with Thunder Wave, which I feel off of the cherry there. Knowing that the super intelligent AI is going to deal with a forward tool, I decide to go for a quick break, bringing it down to sturdy again, which means I can just take it out the next turn since I outspeed. Next up is Colress's Magnezone, so expecting the Thunder Wave, I go for a U-turn to break it sturdy and simultaneously swap out into Hot Pocket, which actually is really new. And remember how Hot Pocket is simple, so it gets double its stat boost? I decided to go for Amnesia, which gives me +4 special defense. This enduring means that the next Blast Cannon does absolutely nothing, and I can take this thing out with a quad effective Earth Power. Our next opponent after that is a complete plan that goes for Shift Gear, but that doesn't really help it out since I just absolutely demolish it with a Lava Foot. Or then sends it as medium, and it goes for a Psychic that does a fair amount of damage, and since I'm now in crit range, I decide to swap out into Habanero. Volcarona actually has a really decent special defense stat, so I can just take this thing out the following turn with a Silver Wing. This means that the only remaining Pokemon on Colress's team is in a tank, so we set ourselves up pretty well since we can just one-shot it with a Heat Wave. I'm glad we don't have to deal with Space Hair anymore. And say what you will about Gexus, but he's got a pretty goated gaming setup if I do say so myself. But before we can actually battle him, we have to battle against like Kyurem, and this could be a pretty scary fight, but I think I have a strategy that's going to work, and that's using Habanero. Like I mentioned earlier, Volcarona's special defense is actually pretty impressive, so we just take this thing out with a couple of Heat Waves, as it does pretty minimal damage with a Fusion Flare. And in the end, this actually works out really well, since I want to start off the battle against Gexus using Volcarona so that I can set up some quicker dances against the Coppergregas. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here. You see, Coppergregas has Toxic, which is something I really don't want to happen to Volcarona. So I give Volcarona a Pecha Berry just so that we can heal off that poison, but the Toxic misses the first turn, so I can go for another Quiver Dance, and then it goes for Shadow Ball. I don't know what kind of 9,000 IQ play this guy's trying to pull, but this just means I get yet another Quiver Dance before we can heal off this Toxic with the Pecha Berry. And I'm well aware that Gexus loves to use Protect after using Toxic, but I can't really risk not taking this thing out the turn afterwards since I can get Toxic once again, but this just means that we can clean sweep through Gexus' entire team, which is always a massive relief because if you don't find a good way to escape this guy's team, he's sure to give you trouble. Finally, the Toxstroke actually gets off a Sucker Punch, but gets punished with the Flame Body and then taken out by a Heat Wave. What a scrub. Get a life, Gexus. After all that Space Pirate nonsense, we meet up with Andy, gives 50 up the Waterfall. We then go ahead and search for this guy's house where we can pick up a much-needed TM for Flamethrower, which can power up a lot of our Pokemon. But since we now have Waterfall, we can access the Abundant Shrine, which is the final location where we can find an encounter, and this time it's Vulpix. I catch it and name it Curry, and it has an impish nature, which is terrible for Vulpix. I keep getting bad natures this run. Either way, one Firestone later, and we get the final evolution on our team and add Ninetales. That's it, I can't let you win this run. That can only be one. Sweet. Game on, Sven. He starts holding up Phantom, so I go into Hot Dog to get that Intimidate off and to burn this thing to do less damage. He then uses Swagger, which means I get confused, so I have to swap out, and I decide to go into Ghost Pepper. This works out brilliantly since I dodge the Facade being a Ghost type, and then Aerial Ace does barely anything as I steal his Ghost Lens with feet. I then go into Curry to deal the final hit, since I want to have a fast Pokemon out that can use Total Wisp on the next Pokemon. So after we take out this hideous bird, I expect Bufalon to come out, and that's exactly what happens. So I hit it with a Will-O-Wisp, it then retaliates back with a fairly powerful Earthquake that does just under half, but just to be safe, I decide to swap out into Barbecue. Now, I'm not exactly pleased with the idea that I might get crit by an Earthquake here, but I'm going to have to risk it and set up a few workups, and we actually get down into pretty dangerously low health territory after the second Earthquake, and I go for another workup. Finally, a third Earthquake gets me down to just 44 HP, and I decide at this point I have to go for a +3 Flame Charge to take out the Bufalon and boost my speed. This speed boost is going to be absolutely necessary to take out the Samurott, which doesn't have Aqua Jet, so it's not going to be able to out-prioritize us and we can just take it out with a single Thunder Punch. Finally, we got Cinesave, which really isn't that much of a threat since the grass type, and we can just take it out with a single plus-free stab flame charge, and that's going to be it for Sven. That's right, Sven. The only Swedish guy who's anybody in this video is the guy with the swoopy hair and his forehead you should be subscribed to at this point. After that fight, I spent tons of time looking for just the right gems I need. And with that, I put together the final team that we're going into the Elite Four with, and the only thing I can say beforehand is that I've never played Challenge Mode before, so I was very scared of this going in. And so with intense preparations and strategizing out of the way, it's time to take on the final Ultimate Challenge. And while I say that I was very afraid of the Elite Four, Chantal was never part of that equation. You see, Chandelure has a base special attack stat of 125, so all I had to do was slap the Choice Scarf on this thing and pretty much just steamroll through all of Chantal's Pokemon. Just the fact that Shadow Ball is both stab and super effective against every single one of our Pokemon makes locking ourselves into it pretty much a no-brainer. So that's it for Chantal, and I decided to take out the Elite Four the way you probably should every single time in a Nuzlocke and do the least difficult ones first. So next up we have Caitlin, who starts out with Luciana. Her strategy here is that she has a Zoom lens on her Luciana, which means that she's going to get hypnosis pretty much every single time. So I slap the chest berry on this thing so that we can wake up and then take it out with a Silver Wing. However, feeling confident since I have +1 special defense and our next Pokemon is Vigilant, I decided to set up a couple more Quiver Dances just so that we can be sure that we're going to take out the other Pokemon in one hit. And as we set up Quiver Dances, obviously we're hitting these Air Slashes better and better, but it actually misses an Air Slash, so I decided to set up a 4. Now, really take out all of our Pokemon with one hit, revealing to everyone and not really surprising anyone with the fact that Volcarona is really good. This means that we defeated 2 Elite Four members and we only have 2 to go, and our next opponent is Quincy and his Dark Types. Quincy starts out with his life card, so I go into large fries, and the very first turn I get normal gem fake out, which does a fair amount of damage. Then I get attracted, but large fries breaks through the power of love with the power of brute force. Quincy's second Pokemon is Crocodile, which does have Intimidate, so I'm pretty much forced to swap out here unless I want to eat an Earthquake, and I decided to go into my own Intimidator. I do still have to take that Earthquake though, and it does a whole lot of damage to Hot Dog. I live on 41 HP and swap out into Habanero, who actually dodges a rock back in the dead. I seriously expected him to go for a more powerful Stab Earthquake, but I guess this is where those 90 plays are coming out. But when Scrappy comes out, I swap into Corpon, he gets his speed mode by rocking it. I then get hit by a pretty huge Earthquake and retaliate with a strong hammer-on to take this Scrappy out of this world. Quincy's next Pokemon is Absol, and I make a pretty silly mistake right here. I go into Habanero, and it goes for Swords Dance, and the next turn I go for my last Silver Wing. And the fact that it just clean takes out this Absol isn't really a problem in and of itself, but the final Pokemon is Pitchard, and I forgot that I gave this thing Choice Star, so this means I ended up using Struggle instead of Flamethrower, and just barely surviving an Aerial Ace. I do actually end up getting a pretty shaky burn right here with Flame Body, after which you have to tank an Aerial Ace with large fries. Bishop then misses a 100% accurate Light Slash because of my fight counter, and I can just take it out with a Brick Break, so all things considered, that was pretty easy. The final opponent we're going to face in the Elite Four Delta is going to be Marshall and his fighting time. He starts out with Rogue, so I go into Habanero, and with the expert mode item, Psychic is actually just a clean one-hit KO on this thing. And honestly, since it's not stab, I was pretty surprised at this, but then it sends in Conkeldurr, and my count said that Psychic was going to one-hit KO this thing too, so I go for it, and it ends up happening. However, next up is Soft, and this thing can be a bit more tricky since it has the sturdy ability, so I decided to swap out into Hot Dog to lower its attack a bit with Intimidate mode. And my plan here is fairly simple. Use Hot Dog to preferably tank a hit, and then go for Willowwood to burn this thing and get rid of that pesky sturdy. And the stupid AI ends up going for Payback here instead of Rock Slide. No idea why, but this gives me a 3-switch into Hot Pocket. And since this stock is burned, this gives me the perfect opportunity to just set up a few curses and amnesias against this thing. And since I once again have this simple ability, this is going to be a twice as effective strategy. And I do need those amnesias just because he does have a Lucario in the back of special moves, so I want to get as prepared as possible while facing this thing. After I felt like I had enough boost and the stock was getting pretty low from first anyway, I decided to just take it out with a Lava Flare. This means the Marshall's next Pokemon is the Eggshow, and this thing can be kind of scary with high jump hit, but actually ends up missing and I burn it. So at this point, it really shouldn't be able to do anything to us. It does, however, unfortunately have to move Bounce, which means it's going to waste a turn, but I did go for Amnesia to max out my so it ends up working out pretty well since I'm a lot slower than this thing and can just take it out with a lava flute. I did end up getting pretty lucky with the fact that I didn't get paralyzed, but finally we only have to Lucario lift the base, and we should take it out with a couple of lava flutes. It does set up the Calm Mind, which is kind of scary since it boosts its special attack, but since we have +6 special defense, the incoming Aura Sphere basically doesn't do any damage for being a +1 Lucario, and we can just take it out with a lava flute, meaning that we got through the Elite Four without any deaths. This means we only have one final challenge left, the Champion Fight. It's going to be Iris' full team of 6 versus our band of fire types. Now, all of Iris' Pokemon resist fire, so we're going to have to think outside the box for this one to even stand any kind of a chance. And Iris starts off the battle really scary with a Hydreigon that knows Surf, so I decided to get the Choice Scarf to large prize and then finish off this thing with a Superpower. But this in turn kind of puts us in a compromised position since Superpower lowers both attack and defense, so whatever comes up next is going to have an upper hand. And even though it's quad super effective, Superpower isn't stab and we are -1 attack, so I decided to swap out large prize for Force Barbecue. The aggro then misses a head smash, so I can freely go for a hammer arm, but I miss mine. I guess that's karma for you, but the next turn, aggro doubles its speed with Economize, and I go for a hammer arm, but this time it's faster, goes for the head smash, but can't quite get the KO, so a Fighting Gem boosted hammer arm takes out the aggro. This puts us in a similar position as before, because now we're -speed as Iris sends in a Lapras, so I have to do something kind of drastic here, and I switch in Hot Pocket. And Hot Pocket came in clutch versus both Chorus and Marshall, but now it's going to make one final sacrifice for the team and go down to a Hydro Pump. And this means we get a quick switch into Ghost Pepper and go for an Energy Ball, which I caught it through Tina, but it doesn't quite take out the Lapras, and we get hit by a Hydro Pump to get taken out. Except by some miracle, the stars align, and we survive on 17 HP, and since we outspeed, we can take out the Lapras the next turn with an Energy Ball. That can be very clutch, but Iris' next Pokemon is Archeops, and this thing is way faster than we are, and just ends up taking out Ghost Pepper with a Dragon Claw. This means we only have 4 Pokemon left, so I decided to go with this strong large prize and can easily outspeed because of that boost, and go for a Superpower, which doesn't quite take out Archeops. And when Archeops is below half health, it actually has half attack, but even still, it manages to one-shot us with a Stone Edge. This means that the current standing of the battle is 3 versus 3 Pokemon, and I swap into Habanero as Iris goes for a full restore. That same turn, I hit the Archeops with a Flamethrower, which does pretty much exactly half, and I can pick it out the next turn with another. And it also means that we're in the lead 3 versus 2, and Iris' next Pokemon is her Druddigon. And I managed to take it down to about half health with a Psychic from Habanero, but an Outrage takes us down to a Focus Sash. Hilariously, we also get the Flame Body Rock, which is what, like the 5th or 6th time in this run? After that, we take out Druddigon with a Psychic, which means that Iris is down to her final Pokemon. And I know that this extra as a Focus Sash, and I can outspeed it with Habanero, so I decided to go for a Psychic just to break that Sash, which unfortunately means that Habanero is going to fall as well. This means we're down to our last 2 Pokemon, which happen to be the first 2 Pokemon we ever got on this journey. But I came prepared. I knew that this moment would inevitably come, and I gave Hot Dog a normal gem and used my priority extreme speed to win this battle. And with that, this means that I did it. I beat a Pokemon White 2 Hardcore Nuzlocke in challenge mode using only fire types. And what did I learn this run? Well, despite the fact that fire types are super awesome, and some of my favorite types of Pokemon, I think I'm actually better at this game than I give myself credit for. I was incredibly worried about playing this game on challenge mode. I'd never done it before, but I actually think it made it more fun to prepare for the new teams that all the gym leaders have. And overall, it was just a really good time to play through Pokemon Black and White 2 again, as it always is. And if you guys had a good time as well, maybe you can drop this video a like. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Additionally, I'd like to give a special thanks to Sim Spectre, who made a guest appearance in this video. If you guys haven't subscribed to him yet either, what are you doing? Seriously. His link is, of course, going to be down in the description.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's T-Sanius here, welcome to episode number 1 of this NHL 22 Minnesota Wild franchise mode. Today we are going to be starting off this series, getting all the rosters and everything set up, and getting to the inaugural part of this franchise mode. So, before we actually jump into setting up the franchise mode, I just want to show you we go over to create players. These are all the guys that we're going to have in the game that would otherwise not be. So I think some of our targets are potentially going to be guys like Ivan Tranquil. He looks really good. Same with Cooley. I gave him a bit of a bump because he's top 5 and almost every skills list. Obviously, we're going to get access to Matthew Goldie and both fantastic players in their own right. And there's a couple other guys in here like Kraken, who I recently added. I didn't get as many young prospects created as I wanted to before I have to record this, but of course Matthew Beachcroft is going to be one of those big names as well that we look to potentially pick up as the Wild, as we really are going to try to build an absolute juggernaut in the NHL. But anyways, those are my created players that are all going to be in the game. Let me go over to the rosters. I just want to make sure that we are running the correct active roster. As you can see here, we are using the newest November update, so it might be a little off based on certain aspects because, again, every time I do rating changes and stuff like that, the second a new roster change comes out, 7 days ago, this is a merged roster, so it should be good to go. And apart from that, I think it's pretty much ready to jump into this. Alright guys, so now that we are finally jumping into this franchise mode, let's get to it. I'm really excited. I think this Minnesota team can potentially turn into something really special. And let's get to this. So we're going to be doing a classic. I'm not doing an expansion draft. We already lost players for that. So, expansion draft's already done. We are going to be in Los Angeles simply because, don't get me wrong, the Wild are doing very well in real life, but we're going to structure this so that we can potentially turn into the best in the NHL. So, Excel Energy Center is ready to go. Iowa Wild's got some great prospects. Our top players are the captains of Jay Spurgeon and Joel Harrison. And the division realignment should change. The Kraken should be looking to are beautiful. Alright, this is all looking solid. Not gonna lie, I think we might struggle the first year, but we might end up doing really, really well too. There's no way to really tell exactly how we're going to do. Owner mode is going to be off. I don't want to play owner mode on this series. We're doing that with Quebec already, and it's already a pain in the butt. So we're going to leave salary cap, CPU traded, and player morale on. Everything else is shut off, and we are good to go here. So, just into some more rules and settings here. Let's get to this quickly. So, first off, we're going to be playing 5-minute periods. We're going to Superstar, 25 years save, that's tapped off. Let's see, what else? Trade difficulties going to stay on medium. I'm not going to make it hard, otherwise I'm never going to be able to line up trades. Auto scouting, we're keeping that. Staff management, that's fine. And I think that's good for regular settings. That looks good. We could do full settings. Let's do full sim, see how that feels. So, into advanced settings, we are going to fully heal for injuries and everything like that. Sim engine scoring, I kind of want to turn sim engine scoring to high just to see how ridiculous it gets. Because we're doing medium sim engine scoring and nobody really scoring at a ridiculous rate. With the Quebec franchise that we're doing, so we're going to do that. I want to bump prospect and draft quality up as well. Shot frequency should be fine, but I'm gonna enjoy playing on high, seeing some ridiculous numbers. The type of jerseys are on. I'm gonna turn morale meetings off because those things just annoy me. To be completely honest with you, and for sliders, I don't think we're gonna touch anything. If injuries get to a ridiculous, actually no, we're gonna bump injuries down to 25%, just because they get so ridiculous when we're full sending. So yeah, we're gonna do that. I think you guys gotta let me know in the comments. Do you want me to see, do you want to see me do a similar kind of setup to the Northeast franchise mode, where we're going to be playing rival games? So if we're playing some teams that are in our division, such as, like, let's say St. Louis and Colorado, those are our biggest rivals. Let's say we play against those teams. Like, you want to see that? You want to see those highlighted games, what the challenges have and stuff like that? Let me know in the comments below. So you have to get to one comment that actually made the list here for. I said drop comments if you want to get featured, and well, it was pretty obvious that this thing can't make us our eyes. That's all I want to fight for. And you know, it's just learn to something. It's just I like it. That Carlson wanted to get featured here. He said you're going to have a really strong young core to get through the cap hell of Sutter and Parise. Rossi, Boldy, and Beckham all seem like a real deal. Addison should be an everyday player as well, moving down to the top line. Or moving Fiala for the top line center would be a potential move, but not a necessity. Interesting. Okay, so he's saying, well, first off, let's go with the contracts here, because they're listed as a seller, which I find interesting. So, when we look at the team, no question, Kaprizov, I'm going to say Kaprizov, that's how I've always said it. He's going to be just fine at $9 million. A whole bunch of these guys are on really good contracts. I would say Zuccarello is probably one of our worst deals at $60 million a year at 34 years old, but he could stick around still potentially. Apart from that, Victor Vasquez is a good deal that he's expiring, unfortunately. Cam Addison, I had higher rated, but then the game switched it back with the update. But don't get me wrong, Adam Beckham is one of those really good players who I think is going to be a great addition to this lineup in the future. And where is the rest of our cap space? I feel like Goldbox and Bastards was super expensive too. I made an assist on there. It's not. So that's the thing, is this cap hell of Bruce and Suter, I'm not really seeing. I did bump Lambos up because, well, Lambos is sick. Don't get me wrong there. And honestly, Marco Rossi probably should be higher rated too. But that's okay. We're going to have him playing on, probably back in the OHL for one more season. Hopefully he develops. If he doesn't, we could potentially trade him for better centers in the future. But, like, there's lots of really high potential players here too. Like, Boldy's going to be sick. Tristan Zinov is going to be awesome. And that's the thing. Like, we got Tristan Zinov, we got a couple. We've only got one Russian player really, but I'd love to potentially get a couple more of those, like, big top-end Russian players, because I think that would go along well with Zinov. We got 71 rated Joseph Wallstead there, also a goalie. So we're set, honestly. Like, we have a great young core, as that Carlson said, and honestly, our cap hell doesn't actually look nearly as bad or as hellish as we're probably thinking. So, taking a look at the draft class, because this is going to be another area we build through. There are some decent-looking American players here, but the guy I might be most interested in is potentially both Cooley or even Ivan Miroshnichenko. Both those guys could be absolutely phenomenal additions to this team. I think they both Slavkovsky up, so he's going to be really good. Apart from that, not gonna lie, I don't recognize a ton of these names. I know so long as it's going to be decent, but nothing crazy spectacular. So overall, I think this first draft is going to be really good. I think if we can land picks a little bit further down in the lottery, such as, say, Brad Lambert or maybe Cooley or Anko, I think those players will be great in the basketball. It would be a fantastic pickup, or like, honestly, use this far down to home end players. So, you guys gotta let me know what try to tank, try to land some top end picks, land a 6 with 3 Trey Weller or somebody like that, or get a good winger like Dylan Stewart, or I don't know. There's lots of options we can take to potentially gain some more prospects and really build a nice young core, or we can just try to compete this year. I really want to know what you guys think, because that is going to essentially determine the trajectory of this team moving forward. So, I think we're not going to make any crazy trades or stuff like that, at least up until the deadline. If we have to make deadline deals, so be it. But I think we start this off by just getting into like a half-season kind of simulation. So before we actually get into the season simulation, let's just figure out our coaching staff as well, because this is going to kind of determine how we play our system moving forward. So, we got a forward coach. That's interesting. He doesn't quite play what I want, but he's honestly not that bad either. So, let's just see what else is available for. I like building forward coaches. You guys don't know this if you watch any of my series. I love building forward coach systems that actually have decent or consistent defense, because that just makes it so much easier building forward in the future. And well, if we're gonna play a pick and shoot, we gotta have to figure out what we guys play. That's the other thing. So, only other problem is that there's really just not a lot of forward coaches in general. So, much as that's, I don't know, not really a whole lot of do for improving the system right now, unfortunately. I would love to really, build a nice balanced chemistry kind of team here, but this guy, Jeff Simon, looks pretty decent actually. But again, I don't know if we're playing a pinch cycle or how this team is going to look. I mean, don't get me wrong, Brennan Frank, only 56% system fit right now, so that's not spectacular. Let's go look at that line and see if this changes anything or not. And yeah, it's not spectacular by any means. So Cap is better on the second line. Interesting. Next, bigger than his first line forward. Goes there. Okay. And then killing in the lineup. Doesn't look terrible actually. So stands better down there. Greenway. Okay, that could be interesting. Try Jordan Greenway on top. What kind of Gallows could be for? Erickson actually not so much. He actually pushed it better there. So yeah, Francisco knows well but yeah, if we get a +3, I don't think Victor Rouse is going to be super fantastic or anything like that, but probably a little below average there, but that's okay. Addison's a picking cycle, Merrill's a balance cycle, balance cycle, okay. So, that's what we're running with for now. And try Addison. Alright guys, so going over to the team scouting now, and as you can see, I just completely Sean here for 12 contracts, or 13 contracts for replacing scouts. But at this moment, we're just going to advance a couple days, hopefully get all the scouts back and nice. Obviously, we have the preseason to simulate through, and it looks like we're going to get 1, 2, final Thursday there. Offer for a third rounder, honestly not that bad a deal, but I think we're just going to hold the team together until we get a bit closer to the trade deadline. And apart from that, I just want to get my scouts going here too. So let's see. see, I haven't actually started scouting anything yet. I'm gonna relocate a couple scouts like this. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go.
As a small business owner, trying to get my reps noticed by the right people.
So I'm going to hire scouts and let me show us how many scouts we got in the tree. Got 400, yeah, 400 is actually correct. Alright, we are set up just like that with the scouting, and we still have one scout available, so I don't know exactly when I need that. Go. But for the most part, it is going to be heavily reliant on each kind of draft class section and higher scouts to show us which regions are. Which regions are going to be the largest. So it's actually right